we always begin with some Bitcoin miners or Bitcoin news. And the biggest Bitcoin news of this past week, was a new HBO documentary that just dropped, claiming to definitively prove who Satoshi Nakamoto was. So, in case this is your first time hearing about like the lore of Bitcoin, Satoshi Nakamoto is the pseudonym for whoever invented Bitcoin. So it could be a person or it could be a whole group of people. We don't know who Satoshi actually was. But HBO claimed that they found out who Satoshi was, and that they claimed that Satoshi is this man by the name of Peter Todd. Now, to be honest, he's not someone that I was like super familiar with before this documentary dropped. I've heard of like a short list of other candidates that people have put up as potential candidates for Satoshi over the years, but Peter Todd was not in that short list. And I'm sure there are some people who might agree with it, but in general, I think the Bitcoiner reaction, people who have been in the industry for a long time, they're saying that HBO was totally off. Like, there's no way. And they're just like, it just shows their lack of understanding of the whole Bitcoin industry. So before I get into that, though, like, who is Peter Todd, right? So I included a picture in the docket of this gentleman. And Peter Todd, I asked ChatGPT to just give a brief synopsis. So he's apparently a prominent figure in the Bitcoin and blockchain space, and he's known primarily for contributions as a Bitcoin core developer. His work focuses on enhancing the security, scalability, as well as ensuring its decentralization. Todd has been involved in various improvements to Bitcoin's protocol, particularly in areas revolving privacy, cryptography, censorship resistance. He's also a minimalist, has a minimalist approach to Bitcoin development, favoring slow, careful updates to not compromise the system integrity. I'm not going to read the rest, but basically it's like he's a hardcore Bitcoiner, and he's been involved since the very beginning, and he's made a lot of contributions, positive contributions to the Bitcoin core code. But I asked ChatGPT kind of point blank about the speculation and about HBO's claim that he's Satoshi. And here's what ChatGPT had to say, right? So ChatGPT said, well, Peter Todd has made significant contributions to Bitcoin, and his expertise in cryptography and deep knowledge of the protocol could qualify him as someone capable of creating something like Bitcoin. Several factors make it unlikely. So first one is timeline and entry into Bitcoin. So Peter Todd became involved in the Bitcoin space only around 2012 to 2013. As we know, the Bitcoin white paper was released in 2009, I believe. And then it didn't really, like, not that many people knew about it until 2012 and beyond. Todd was not involved in the early development of Bitcoin, and his entrance into the community was a developer looking to improve upon what already existed, not as someone who has been working on it since inception. And number two, his style and communication is totally different than what Satoshi is, or how Satoshi talked when Satoshi posted on forums and stuff. So Peter Todd is known for being direct, outspoken, and at times provocative in his online interactions. If I remember correctly, he at one point criticized Bitcoin at one point. So it's just like his style of communication is totally different than what we would expect Satoshi's to be. Number three, technical focus. While Todd has been involved in contributed many improvements into Bitcoin, his technical focus is about enhancing the protocol. Satoshi Nakamoto, on the other hand, demonstrated a unique blend of vision, coding ability, and economic insight. So basically, this paragraph is arguing that Todd is mostly, coming from an engineering and programming side, but Satoshi Nakamoto, we know, embedded a lot of economics and economic principles into Bitcoin. So it doesn't seem like he's the type of guy, like Todd is the type of guy that would have a lot of expertise in that field. Not that he's like totally blind to economics, but it's not really in his wheelhouse. So number four, public statement. Peter Todd himself denied being Satoshi Nakamoto. So of course, people will say if he was the real Satoshi, he would deny it as well, which is fair. But for what it's worth, he's denied it. And yeah, he said that if he was Satoshi, he would not have abandoned the project in the way that Satoshi did. So again, this is just his own personal statements. Take from that what you will. And again, number 5, I think we already mentioned this. No evidence of his early involvement in like the very beginning. So yeah, the conclusion basically, this is ChatGPT, right? I didn't make this up, and I don't know where ChatGPT got this info from, but according to ChatGPT, it's very unlikely that Peter Todd is Satoshi Nakamoto. So, yeah, basically that's the synopsis. And I did ask you guys to watch kind of the part of the video where it was like where the reporter or the HBO filmmaker was trying to like accuse Peter Todd of being Satoshi. And he was just very like dismissive of that idea and laughing it off, and basically saying that this is like such a ridiculous theory. So I asked you guys to watch that video, so maybe you guys can comment on that video. I don't want to play it because of like copyright reasons, but if you just look up it on Twitter and stuff, like you can find it. So yeah, I just wanted to ask you guys, first of all, do you think that there is evidence that Peter Todd is Satoshi? Like, could he actually be Satoshi? And if not, who do you think was Satoshi? Or do you have like a short list of candidates? And number 3, do you think it's important for the Bitcoin community to know who Satoshi was? Or is it better that we don't find out who Satoshi was? Or is? So I'm just going to keep it open-ended and pass it off to you guys, whoever wants to take it.
But yeah, basically, it's all circumstantial evidence on both ends. Like even if Peter Todd says, first of all, I thought this is one part of Peter Todd's explanation I found weird, is he said Satoshi abandoned Bitcoin. There is no evidence Satoshi abandoned Bitcoin. First of all, even if he like decided he didn't want to work on it anymore, it's not necessarily abandonment. He disappeared. He could be using his real name now while being involved in Bitcoin. So I just think even Peter Todd's explanation is like, really? I've always liked the Adam Back theory. And then one of the circumstantial pieces of evidence the Adam Back theory is that Satoshi wrote English in like British English or like Canadian English, where the way he spells certain words. Peter Todd's Canadian, which is kind of interesting. And then like there's like the general ideas that like Satoshi was a group, not an individual. I mean, I always kind of thought maybe there's a chance that Satoshi started off as an individual and evolved into a group. So like he went, found Adam Back, linked up with Adam Back and Samson Mao. And then these guys kind of like figured out that Peter Todd was Satoshi, or Satoshi told, or Pete told, he like confronted them and said, "Yeah, by the way, I'm Satoshi." And then they're all kind of working together in the background. That's kind of it's not. I have no evidence to back that theory. Of course, this is all circumstantial. So that's kind of my general view on it, where I kind of like the theory because it still connects it to Adam Back, and I've always been like one of the Adam Back is Satoshi backers. On the other hand, there's sensationalism in the documentary too. Like, they brought on Nouriel Roubini, who's got no credibility with Bitcoiners. Like, why would they bring on such an uncredible individual? They also like went into how Bitcoin pollutes and stuff, which is like they didn't provide any context to that, but how Bitcoin actually helps a lot of green energy projects, for example. The thing I did like about it, I didn't actually watch the documentary. I read a lot about it so far, but the thing I did like about it is that they had a lot of Blockstream in it. I'm a huge fan of Blockstream. I love the Blockstream guys, and I love how much they get presented in the documentary.
The last part of the question was, do you think it's best as Bitcoiners to not find out who Satoshi was, or would you rather know if given the chance?
There's a 2-part answer. First of all, I think it's dangerous. You're putting people's lives in danger. So I think we should be very aware of that. The other thing is that I have a feeling that if we ever found out who Satoshi was, like they always say, you don't want to meet your hero. Like we almost deify Satoshi. I'd rather just keep deifying him than to find out who he is and then find out all his flaws and then end up not liking him or something like that. And I think a lot of people who deify him would be very disappointed when they see that he's just like a regular human who has regular human flaws.
Sorry, Peter Todd, that's his name, right? Yeah, I need to pull the docket back over. Yes, is Peter Todd Satoshi? No, probably not. I sincerely doubt it. If only because I don't trust that HBO's journalists would have done a good enough job to find Satoshi, and be even remotely successful. I just don't have any faith in them. I'm sorry. That yeah, and he clearly is saying that he's not. And I mean, if you were Satoshi, you probably wouldn't want to claim being Satoshi anyway. So I understand that maybe that's a factor as well, but I just don't think that it's Peter Todd, and I think that they're just kind of barking up the wrong tree. As to who Satoshi is, honestly, I don't think about who Satoshi is. I don't really care who Satoshi is. At this point, this project, Bitcoin is past Satoshi. Satoshi doesn't matter anymore, really. Like he is, he doesn't need to come back. He doesn't need to do anything. Bitcoin has run and become, whether it is Satoshi's intention or not, Bitcoin has gone to become its own sort of thing, its own sort of financial tool. And because of that fact, I don't think that there's any real value in having Satoshi come back or be prominent in the Bitcoin space anymore. Anyway, I'm sure that any word that if Satoshi did show up, I'm sure any word that they had would be very valuable, and from a people listening perspective, but from the system perspective, it is basically not worth anything. So in fact, I would much rather not know who Satoshi is and just basically ignore their existence, because it doesn't matter to the platform anymore. And if anything, I think I'm probably more aligned with the idea that it's actually detrimental to have, as Sunil was saying, like someone with actual like normal human flaws being involved in this, that people are going to assess. Like, imagine if Satoshi came out and was like a pedophile. Wouldn't that make Bitcoin seem a lot worse? And obviously we don't know who Satoshi is, so maybe he is, maybe he isn't, maybe she is. I don't know. We don't know who it is, but like having that kind of bad press from the individual who is essentially bringing no value to the platform, I just think it's not very valuable, and at this point we really are better off just not knowing. It's like finding out who the first person to discover gold is. He probably like killed like 15 people to get to that shiny metal. I don't care who he is. It doesn't really matter.
Oh, I think Tristan had the best answer. Actually, I totally agree. It's just like we don't need Satoshi anymore. So why are we obsessing with it? But there's also like speculation that Peter Todd like purposely led on Satoshi, which I found was interesting. I'd have to watch the documentary to get a good sense of it, but I find that interesting that he like accidentally led him on for fun and now probably regrets it.
The only information that I have on my side is just like the information that you provided, but from hearing everyone else's opinions and such too, I don't think it would be Peter Todd. And I do agree with Tristan by saying I don't know if HBO is like the network to trust, so to speak, on like figuring out, the person that we've been trying to search for like a decade now. I don't think it would be via HBO. It'd probably be via another source. And for that, since like the timelines don't match and all these other contributing factors, I don't think it's him necessarily. And who do I think it is? It's probably Jay-Z and Beyonce. No, I'm kidding. I don't know either who it would be. Illuminati, I don't know, or Diddy. No, I'm kidding. But it's hard to say who it would be. I don't have anyone in mind. And I guess I do also agree with Tristan too as well. It's like, does it really matter? I don't know if I necessarily care who it is. I think the value of Bitcoin has something to do with us not knowing who Satoshi actually is and who he would be. And I think humanizing it would also devalue the coin possibly. I think that could be also a possibility too as well. Like the idea of not knowing who this person is, and it's also like it's doing its thing on its own. we do know the creator of Ethereum as an example. I don't know if it has something to do with like length of existence, but Ethereum isn't doing nearly as well as Bitcoin. That could mean nothing to everyone, but I mean, it could mean something. So I think, all in all, I think not knowing who Satoshi is kind of nice, and it brings value to Bitcoin. And yeah, that's what I think. So these are my opinions.
Yeah, I mean, totally makes sense. And I'm not going to speak too long on this because I think I'm just going to be repeating what all of you just said. But just to bring it back to what Dom was saying, the thing about it, Vitalik and Ethereum, I think that's actually a really good point, right? Because we know who the founder of Ethereum is. Granted, it's not just Vitalik, but like he worked with a bunch of other guys. But Vitalik is seen as the kind of head of Ethereum. And there's a lot of personal pressure that could be exerted on him, right? So if he steps out of line, or if Ethereum, like the project, if the holders of the tokens decide to go and do something that the U.S. government, for example, doesn't like, then the U.S. government knows exactly who to pressure, right? But the same is not true for Bitcoin, just for the fact that we don't know who Satoshi Nakamoto is. So it removes like the singular point of failure. And that's, I think, what makes Bitcoin unique. And on that note, of course, I would agree that it's best that we don't know who Satoshi is, because again, it's one of the factors that make Bitcoin unique. So yeah, totally agree with what you guys said. As to, my short list of who I think it could be, I think on Polymarket, they were actually predicting that they were going to name an individual by the name of Len Sassaman as Satoshi. And what was unique about him was that he studied in London, England, for a while, and maybe that's like the source of like kind of the British style of writing that Satoshi had. And Lin unfortunately also passed away, so that would also explain why Satoshi kind of left the project and never moved his coins and stuff. Is maybe Satoshi was Len, and because he died, then like the coins will never move, right? So I think that could be like a better candidate that people were predicting HBO was going to say, but they didn't name Sassaman for whatever reason. And another candidate is Hal Finney. So if Hal Finney was not Satoshi Nakamoto, he's at least the first person to have confirmed contact with Satoshi Nakamoto, and they exchanged emails. And I believe he was also the recipient of the first ever Bitcoin transaction. So yeah, those are a few candidates, but again, I don't think we'll ever know for sure. And it could be someone else as well, or it could be a whole group of people that these individuals that I just named were involved in, or it's really hard to say. And I don't think that it's valuable for us to determine who it is. In fact, it'll have negative value because of the political pressure factor that I mentioned earlier, right? And it's, yeah, like Sunil said, never meet your heroes. So yeah, anyways, that's it for that segment, unless you guys have anything else to add. If not, we can...
One last thing. I hope it's Peter Todd, because I can then say I met Satoshi Nakamoto, because I met Peter Todd this summer.
Oh yeah, and you want to like speak briefly about that experience?
It was just random. I was at the Canadian Bitcoin conference, and one of my friends I was with is like really into the developer side, so he kind of dragged me up to the small room, and he's like, "There's a guy who's like a famous developer of Bitcoin. You got to go see him." And he like nerded out for like an hour and talked about nerdy stuff. And it was a small little conference hall, so I was like 5 feet away from him the entire time, 5 feet away from Satoshi. And then Satoshi allegedly came off stage, and my friend went to talk to him, and I shook his hand and said, "Thanks for your presentation." So I shook Satoshi's hand and said thanks. I didn't even understand his presentation because it was so technical. But yeah, so that's why I wanted to be him, because then I could say that I met the real Satoshi.
You met the GOAT, maybe.
Yeah.
Well, I hate to break it to you, but the conclusion of our discussion tonight for the past 30 minutes was that you did not meet Satoshi. So
I actually agree with the conclusion too. I don't think it's it.
We'll leave that hanging.